Hey everybody, Lucas here. It's GTD time again. We're going to take a look at Taskade today to see how well this software works to build your personal getting things done or GTD productivity system. Taskade initially caught my eye when one of you commented on it on one of my other videos. And back then I took a look at it and I wasn't really impressed. But they have been putting out several updates since. So I was keen to try it out again, and I'm happy to report that this time around, I think I found a way to make it work for GTD. So what we're going to do in this video is go through that system by linking it to the 5 pillars of GTD. How easy can we capture, process, organize, and reflect on anything that comes our way so that we can then engage with it in the right time and the right context. Let's get started. We begin our review of Taskade by just looking at a general overview of the tool as a whole. This is the home screen after logging in and of course after having set it up already, in which you can see that on the left hand side we can create several workspaces. I could create a new workspace here. This is the, let's say, primary category of Taskade, and it's because it's geared towards collaborative productivity. Probably if you're a company with multiple teams or working on different products or something, it's very useful to have the ability to create these separate workspaces. However, for personal productivity, I found it to be unnecessary, especially considering subspaces, which we can create for any workspace, including this one, which I've done for things like projects, areas of focus, goals, vision. You see it all here, and we're going to go through it in more detail throughout the video. Really important and nice to have is the dark mode, which of course I've turned on. And we have an inbox living right here in the center. So how does that work? How do we look at the first pillar of GTD, capturing? How do we capture any items into this inbox here? That's what we're going to take a look at right now. Taskade is a system that doesn't come with an inbox out of the box, so we have to set one up ourselves here, which is exactly what I've done. So when you are in your main workspace, what you can do is stay on the home section here for now, and you can create what's called a project in this taxonomy. Not to be confused with an actual GTD project, that's just what they call it. It's like this collection of tasks and notes on any particular type of organizational level, let's put it that way. And Inbox is one of those. So I've created one here, and you can create one yourself by navigating to New Project and selecting Blank Projects. Then you can proceed to just give it a title, which I've done here, just name it Inbox, and you can stylize it with emojis, for example, or uploading your own images. I've chosen the Inbox emoji because, hey, why not? And you can even go further with that, stylizing the header. I don't see the point of that, but you can certainly do it. And from there, you can basically drop anything, including tasks, although you have to be mindful of the formatting, which in my opinion isn't very intuitive. It's kind of jumpy and it's kind of huddled together. So here I kind of created a test task for illustration purposes, in which I've named it and I've also tagged it. Now these tags are really important because they are what's going to serve us to differentiate any item from next actions. Plus, they're going to allow us to filter for specific contexts later on, which is obviously what we want to do in a GTD system. So by using the hashtag symbol and then typing anything, you're actually creating these tags, and you can also reuse them for any future item. So, if I want to add something new, what you can see right off the bat, it thinks that you're kind of, writing an article or something, it seems, because it changes to the paragraph formatting. So we're going to have to manually adjust it to a task, which seems to have 2 symbols for it, which is also a bit confusing. This looks like a subtask and this looks like a main task. I don't even know. But hey, here's my other item. Let's say it's the next action, or it's going to be one at least, and we can do it from our office. Well, there we go. Now these items are living in the inbox. It's not the best, right? It works and you can process it. Don't worry about that, but it's just not as intuitive as it would be with a system that's built for productivity, like Todoist, for example, or many others. So be mindful of that when creating a system like this. What you could do is change to an action view, which allows you to see more things and assign it to yourself, which is going to be important later on down the road. I chose not to do it because anything in your inbox really can be anything, right? It doesn't have to be a task. It can also be reference material or reminder or anything else. So this is how it works, and on mobile it works in a similar way. There's a widget that you can also use to star the inbox on your phone's home screen, which also seems to lag behind a little bit. I started here and it works, but you can see that the standalone items list is also start, which it no longer actually is in my projects view, which we're going to look at in a moment. So yeah, it's not very robust or snippy, if we can call it that, but it does work. So for capturing, make sure that you create your own inbox, make it easy to access, and get used to how it works. And we're going to now jump into processing any of those items in chapter 2, which is processing. All right, well, now we've got an inbox filled up with a couple of items. We've captured some thoughts and ideas, and we want to move them into the right place, which is what we do in processing anything from the inbox, right? So how does that work exactly? Well, first of all, we want to clean the inbox up a little bit so it's set up properly for processing. And you can, reorder items as you see fit. What I've learned is that they actually work in blocks, which really can be anything like we've seen already. Checklists, tasks, bullet points, or paragraphs of text, whatever it is. It's given a title automatically. You're going to have to do some changing around of that. Here we go. Now we have separate tasks. Let's put it like this. Remove any of the clutter as such. And now we have a more clean looking list right there. So I already gave some tags to one of the items. So let's roll with that. Let's assume this is a task that we can perform from home and it's a next action. But it's still living in the inbox. So where do we put it? For simplicity's sake, we're just going to move it into a project folder. Every item has a project related to it, and if not, it's a standalone action. So what we can do there is move it, which we can do by clicking on these three buttons here, and it will open up the option to do so. However, for some reason, the UI isn't working with my screen. It's a normal screen, don't get me wrong, but it's just breaking off. I cannot even select it properly. So what I'm going to have to do is zoom out here. And now we can see the menu in full, and we can move it somewhere else. And we're going to move it from the space it's in now, which is just the normal GTD setup space, to the projects space. And from there, we can move it to what I've created already, a list of standalone items. So this is a project just like the inbox project, quote unquote. But now we've moved it there and the inbox has been emptied. So taking a look at how that looks inside of Taskade is we can move to the project subspace. We can go to the standalone items list that I've created, and voila, it's living there now. Now here, I think the action view is actually more warranted, and it allows us to then do things like select a due date if it has one, or even a start time, or repetitions if it needs one, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment. You can assign it to yourself, which is pretty important for the system. Otherwise, searching for tasks when trying to find some specific things won't show up always. We can add comments for further clarification. This is like project support material, or I don't know, a certain link that you might need to perform the task, anything like that. You can even upload attachments or embed other items here, which is pretty cool. And we can, again, reformat or move it again if we need to. Let's say this turns out to be a reminder instead of a task, so we just misplace it. We can move it to the tickler file as such as well. So moving things around is pretty easy to do. Other ways to process things are routines, for example. Let's say I have to take out the trash every Tuesday, and that is something we can do by, having it live here, and by having the due date set on every Tuesday, weekly repetition, we will get a reminder for it when the time is there, but not before or after, because before, what's the point? You cannot do it now anyway. And so that's why this is something I've adopted in all my systems, a separate routines list. All right. So that is how it works. That is how you process items from this inbox here to other spaces in the workspace by using the move feature. But if the menu breaks off, I'm zooming back into 100%, you can see some options were removed. Yeah, you gotta zoom out your window. That's the only solution I've found. It's not very professional in terms of UX, but hey, it's still readable. We still made it work. So yeah, that's how we gotta do it for now. All right, great. We've captured and processed our first items. Now, how does the system actually work in terms of organizing? Where do you actually put everything? How do you find next actions? And most importantly, how do you filter them for specific contexts? That and more is what we're going to look at now. So this is the longest and also my favorite part of the video. So let's get started right away. We already went through a couple of examples for standalone items that don't have a full project associated with them, as well as routines. There's also projects in the GTD sense, of course, though. In other words, outcomes that require multiple tasks to get achieved. In this scenario, let's imagine that we're a singer and we want to release our first song. That's the project I've created here, and that's how I've named it. And I've used the action view here to do so. In this case, I applied some more of the formatting options that these blocks enable you to do. And I've broken the project up into 3 phases. Prepare, which includes writing the lyrics and finding a studio. Record, which means actually singing into the microphone and then receiving a mastered MP3. So this is an example of an outsourced action that we've already predefined, in which case we need to wait for our producer to actually send us the mastered audio file. And then lastly, after that's all done, we want to release it by September 30th because that's the deadline our label gave us, by publishing it on Spotify and YouTube. So what you can see here is that I've already created all these actions associated with each phase. And in the hashtags, you can find the contexts in which the task probably will take place, right? Some will be at home, because maybe home is the most inspiring place for me to write lyrics. But finding a studio, I need my laptop for that. I need to record my song in that studio, actually. So there's a variety of contexts there. However, because it's a sequential project, not every item can be done whenever we please. We cannot record the song before we found a studio. So that is why only the items in phase number 1 also have the next tag with them. And that's the way we differentiate next actions from any follow-up actions. So this is an example of how you can organize and view that on the project level. However, how do we actually get an overview of every single item with this particular tag? Can we click on it? Well, we can, and in that case, it shows up as a search query. However, just searching for this will show any item with the home tag. So what we'll want to do is make sure that we use both the next tag as well as home. And then we see results. However, the problem is these results are only within the project. And it's also not excluding items that only match one of the two. So what we should do there is actually go to the main search on the left-hand side after we navigate back to the general workspace. And then we can search next home, and it spits out any item with next home at the top. It does still show items that also have the other contexts, but from what I've tested, this is a way to at least have them show up at the top. And then if you search next laptop, for example, those items show up at the top first and then the rest shows up. Here is an item that also includes the laptop tag, but it's not a next action, so it's at the very bottom. So certainly not perfect. I've tried multiple ways to do it, and filtering only allows you to filter for who is the owner of the task. And then again, Taskade showing its collaborative workspace side. So it's not perfect, but it will work if you get used to it and if you just make sure you pay attention to what the search result actually says, right? So at the top, we do have a next action here that we can perform from our laptop, and it also shows the project it is related to. And by clicking on it, it pulls it up right away. So that's pretty good. So that is how you organize and filter for actions, next actions, and use the tags for projects as well. And that is what concludes the project's subspace review. We also have other horizons of focus though, such as areas of focus. Now, in this scenario, again, we're sticking with the singer scenario. Let's say I'm an artist with a certain label. So that's a certain role I play in my life, right? And so my responsibility there is to keep up steady music production. In this case, as you can see, there is no tasks because that's not what you do when defining an area of focus. You just, basically store the information, which you can do with a block of a different type, such as a header or a paragraph for more detail, to have it live there more as a text-based item instead of a task-based item, which is also why we are using the list view here and not the actions view. For goals, you can actually create very high levels of specificity here. In this case, I went with the SMART goal setting method, which means every letter here is a part of an acronym, is the goal specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And in this case, we want to gain 1 million streams on Spotify as an artist by the end of the year, which fulfills all those conditions. I also make it a habit to link to any supporting projects to a goal. In this case, just by literally copy pasting the link, and you can see it already previews what the title is. It would have been nice if it showed that up right away like some other tools do, but it still works, and by clicking on it, we can navigate to that project right away. So that's how you can interlink those two horizons of focus. Those three, I should actually say: goals, areas of focus, and projects. So my vision is to become a successful artist who will be adored by millions. And one way to do that is by actually making it measurable with a SMART goal, right? So again, we have that interlinking going on here. My purpose behind all that is because I want to heal the world through music. Beautiful, right? Cool. Well, those are the 5, 6, I should say, main horizons of focus, all the way from the action level up to your life purpose. So this is how you can organize those within the Taskade system. On the more operational side of things, there's the tickler file with reminders, which seems to be taking a while to load here, but there it is. And actually, this is a bit confusing at first because you see here is again a my reminders list. Well, what's the point of that then? That's just because you have to always create a project before you can create standalone tasks. You cannot do one without the other. However, you can view the tasks separately that live within that project. So that's what I recommend here. Create the project. Within that project, then set up your reminders by associating a due date with them in the action view. But whenever you want to get an overview of things, just navigate to the task view right away. Someday maybe is like a deferred inbox of sorts. You can, call it your bucket list and further categorize it. Let's say I want to record a song with Justin Bieber, right? Because that's bound to make me successful, I'm sure. And some people have told me I look like him. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Moving on anyway. Lastly, we have the reference category. So this is something I've actually left empty for now, but it is something you can really let your imagination fly with it in how you want to organize it. Obviously, you can go by, creating a project and using the classic list view to store any sort of information like, I don't know, a song, lyrics, or anything like that. We change it to a paragraph. We save it as such. And then, if we need it for concerts or something to read from, there it is. But there's other views that you might want to use here, like the mind map feature, which is pretty cool. So obviously this is not really making sense, but you can use these blocks to connect certain things to each other. And it's an integrated mind map feature, which is pretty nice. An organizational chart is also included. So if you want to vertically, relate things to each other, that's also possible. And the chat view is something that is really there for the collaborative side of things. So we're going to ignore that. We're just not really going to use that. So for reference material, just get creative here. You can store text like we just saw, but you can also upload attachments inside of these blocks if you want to. And that way you can also store files inside of this system. So it's really holistic in that way, and it allows you to organize everything nicely from a GTD perspective. So that's where it does stand out to me in some ways, in that it is holistic. Filtering, not great, but it works. It's important to regularly reflect on your system. Is everything still in the right place? Is it relevant? Is it complete? Etc. That's where, for me, at least a weekly review moment once a week is just essential. It's the anchor of any GTD system, in my opinion. So how can we do that in this system? Well, for one, I think the views that we've created here allow us to keep everything organized in the first place already, especially the projects view, which allows us to see things from the right perspective, right? We can see projects from start to finish if we've defined them as such, with actions having or not having the next tag. But if they are complete, then we know, let's say if these items are complete and we see during our review that these items are just sitting there without the next tag, we can now proceed to add that tag to these items because the first phase was complete. Now this is a waiting for item, so we're going to keep that like that. But you can see also there's a visual progress marker here based on the number of tasks in total and how many you've completed. So that's looking really nice there. Other than that, you want to just make sure you have an easy way to clean up your inbox. But I believe in this view, that is easy to do. It's all there from within this one workspace. And you could even create a checklist of sorts for your weekly review. So that's where I actually went to the blank project feature again from the just home space here. And there are several templates available already for anyone from Taskade themselves. But you can also create our own. So let's say very quickly jotting down some ideas here, weekly review. You put the date here, and then you just do things like this. Clear inboxes, check projects, check particular file reminders, etc., etc. Whatever comes in your weekly review. You can then also proceed to save this as a template and access it for future use, so you don't have to do this over and over. That's where these templates really come into play here, and by clicking on them you will then be able to create a new project from it and use that template as we see here, and there it is. So reflection in Taskade is easy to do thanks to its template feature and its well organized layout, in my opinion. All right, and that concludes our review of Taskade for GTD. Now it's just time to start taking action and engaging with any of the items that are actionable inside of your system. So now I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think of Taskade? Do you think it works well as a GTD system? If you want to try it out, you can do so by using the link in the description of this video, and I'll be very curious to read your thoughts and responses. I'm also always looking for further input on other systems that might warrant a review, just like a comment prompted my review of this system right here. So I want to thank you all for your continued support and engagement with these videos. It really means a lot to me. And what else is there left to say except for good luck with setting up your GTD system? Thanks for watching.